Well, welcome, Michelle. I'm super excited to talk to you. We've only had one conversation, but from that first conversation, I was lit up. I was at the end of that conversation, just really, really looking forward to today. So, welcome.
Thank you.
I certainly appreciate you taking time to talk to us today.
Awesome. I'm glad to be here to talk about my purpose in life.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
yeah.
And that was actually, now that you kind of say that, that was really the one thing when I reached out to you and you wrote me back saying that you were certainly interested and you love the name of the podcast because you sing with purpose. And that to me just, it raised the hair on the back of my neck. And I was just like, I have to hear more about that. So, so maybe we can kind of start with there. Like, I would love to understand, you know, was singing something that you just always did, or did it evolve? What was that like for you?
And well, it's a it evolved as a child, and I would say that I was born with this in my DNA, my genes, because
Hmm.
everyone in my family is a singer.
Hmm.
My mom was a singer, my aunts, my uncles. In fact, that's how she met my father when she was out singing, performing, and they met at a venue or whatever
Oh,
where she was performing
that's
at.
fun.
Yeah, and so my mom told me this interesting story when she was pregnant with me, that she would be in the studio recording, and sometimes she'd have to stop because when the music started, I would start moving on the
Mhm.
inside. I felt it in utero. Um, so it's been there from the time I was in my mother's womb,
Yeah.
and till now. And music helped me through some difficult traumatic experiences in my life. And so
Mm,
when we'll go into that, but so when
mm.
I say I sing on purpose, there is a purpose behind that, because every chance that I have to sing um inspiration to people,
Mhm.
to me it's speaking life into
Yeah.
people, to
Yeah.
encourage people to keep living beyond the traumatic experiences, beyond the depression, beyond loss of faith and hope. So I look at that as an opportunity, and so that's why I sing. Whenever I open up my mouth, it's for a purpose, and so I sing on purpose.
I love that. And because, you know, we don't go through life without going through something. It is
Mm.
something that we all share. It's different for us all, but being able to express yourself through music and then be able to connect with people has to be extremely, extremely rewarding for you.
Mhm.
When I would imagine you get people who reach out to you and say, "Thank you for that song," and things of that nature. What does that feel like for you?
It feels good. There have been several occasions where I've sung at venues, and one in particular that struck out to me the most was in 2019. I was in New Haven singing at the Arts and Ideas Festival, and my band and we adapted a version of Rise Up by Audrey Day. And so we took it and put a little gospel inspirational flair to it. And there was a woman, we sung that song at the end of our set, and there was a woman who was in a wheelchair. Um, and I was told that she was so moved and so emotional from that song that she was literally in tears and almost falling over in her wheelchair, because it just reached the core of her soul so much. And people have come up to me and just say, there's something about when you sing, it
Mhm.
like touches me. It like touches the core. They can't explain it. They'll show me their arm and say, like, look, and gave me goosebumps.
I've got goosebumps. Look.
And I look at that and I'm like, okay, if I get joy out of singing somewhere where maybe somebody came with a feeling of discouragement, and they leave there feeling like, man, I can actually do this. Like, I
Mhm.
feel really good. I listened to Michelle's voice and it just resonated within my soul and it did something. And so that to me is better than any autograph. It's better than any picture,
Hmm.
because those things will fade away. And we only get one life to live. And why not be able to live that life full of joy and full of
Yeah.
peace, rather than, frustration and anger. And so, those moments are most precious to me, and
Hmm.
just give me hope as to, yes, this is my purpose. I was here, I was put here to sing and uplift people in a way that will give them life to continue living.
Yeah. Well, and the accolades are nice, and everyone,
Mm-hmm.
it's nice to have that, like, oh, people really appreciate what you do, but to have it move people and touch people, that's a gift.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing to be able to, experience that with somebody and do that. Now, do you write all of your own music? Does it come from, experience and things of that nature? Is that how you're able to kind of really put all of your passion and purpose into what it is that you sing?
Yeah, actually, when I wrote my first EP, it was called My Life's Testimony.
Mm,
And there were three songs in particular that I had written, that talked about situations in my life. It went from everything to just acknowledging, when I think about all of the things that are happening, the good things and the bad things, like, I just still want to give God praise. And um, when I look back at certain situations in my life that I had to deal with, there's a song that I wrote in 2017 called I Am Triumphant.
mhm,
And that song really was inspired by my past experience with dealing with suicide at a
mhm.
young age, 15 to be exact.
Yeah.
And I wrote that song because I know there are other people that are dealing with that and feel like they can't overcome what it is that they're going through. But sometimes you have to speak to yourself. You might have to get a handheld mirror and just look at yourself, because sometimes we can't rely on other people, right?
It's so true. Well, and I think that and I appreciate the fact that you share these experiences, because it helps for people to understand that they're not alone, but we all have varying levels. And one of the things that I try to tell people, as I'm coaching them, especially in the very, very beginning, is that a lot of us don't have very good self-esteem about ourselves.
Mm.
And so I tell people to get in a super person pose, stand in front of the mirror
Yeah.
after you get out of the shower, and just tell yourself all of the things that you love about yourself, because it's just an amazing way to start your day. And again, we we don't want to rely on anybody else to give that to us. We need to feel it inside, even. And so it is helpful. So I love the mirror kind of thing that you tell people, because it really is so true. Just talk to yourself, tell yourself all of the good things.
Yeah, and we seek the gratification of others, when
Of
we're
course.
so concerned with what others think of us. But honestly, at the end of the day, it's like, what do you think about yourself?
Hmm.
What do you think? Do you think you're powerful? Do you think that you're strong? Do you think that you're wonderfully made? Like, what do you really think about yourself? Because people have a lot of opinions, but
Yeah.
what do you stand on? What do you believe in? And so you do have to look at yourself and be like, okay, Michelle, you are wonderful. Doesn't
Hmm.
matter what anybody else says. You are wonderful. You are successful. Scott, you are the man. Doesn't matter what anybody else says. You got it together. Because
But
sometimes we're yearning for other people to tell us things, and that might not come.
yeah.
And when we do that, we feel discouraged, like, well, nobody notices me. Nobody, knows all the good that I'm doing. As long as you know it and you are proud of it and you're pursuing it as part of your purpose, you just keep doing it.
And it's really powerful, kind of what you're just saying there, is because other people, they can be discouraging, but a lot of times they can come from their own insecurities, their own failures that they
Mhm.
haven't been able to then push past, because failure is not failure until we give up. That's just a lesson that allows us to take
Right.
another road, that to, to open up a door. But if somebody is telling us something that's in this negative capacity, then it's just like, okay, well, we have to sometimes question, well,
Mhm.
why is that information coming to us that way? Because again, sometimes other people, they can't get past some of their own stuff, and so they want to put it
Mhm.
out on us, and that's not fair. um, but it's
No.
hard to do, right? I mean, it's super difficult to get to
It-
this space where we're just like, yeah, and even once we get there, I've still, I get days where I'm down and I don't feel the best, but I have habits that I've built into kind of my daily routine that allow me to kind of push past that, or kind of reflect on some of the good,
Yeah.
and move forward. So how do you push past? I know that you were saying, you mentioned, suicide and things of that nature. So how did you find support? How did you, kind of be in this situation to then say, okay, well, now how am I going to get myself out of that situation? Did you go to
Right.
therapy? Was there, yeah.
Wow. So that's a really good question because I just, when I look back, what led up to that point was, like I said, my mom was a singer and, into the music scene. And, sometimes just from Hollywood news, it looks like, when you're in that life, that there's an addiction that develops to substances. And so my mother, unfortunately, was one of those
Mm,
who became addicted to drugs. And so when I was born, I was actually taken by my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, to be raised so that my mom and father could go to rehab because
mm,
they were so addicted. And my grandmother pretty much raised me from that point on, even though
mhm.
my parents were around. And but good, grandmothers, right? Grandmothers know best. So, she was in my life. And unfortunately, when I was 13, by that time my parents had got a divorce, and my mom passed away when I was
Sorry.
13 unexpectedly. And so as an only child, having dealt with the divorce of my parents, and then entering into high school, dealing with peer pressure and
Mhm.
bullying and all of that, it had just got to me, trying to grieve, trying to understand what life had to really offer me.
Oh, I mean, and that's such a delicate age where you're already awkward trying to find who you, like who you are and all of those things, to then have to deal with all of that as well. That's
It was difficult because at one point I went through rape. And so just coupled all of that together, it's hard to see purpose, right?
yeah.
It's see, is there anything good for me? And so I just remember feeling one day in my room, I was just like, it's better that I'm not here,
Mhm.
because my mom's gone, my father doesn't want me, the kids at school don't like me. Um, and again, this goes back to, what do you think about yourself? I didn't even ask myself what I thought. I
Yeah.
didn't care about how do I see Michelle?
Mhm.
What do I have? And I had already, Scott, I was already singing. I was playing piano for my grandfather's church. I was
Mm.
directing choirs. I
Oh,
was acting,
wow.
yeah,
So
young.
you had a lot of great things kind of
I had
going
a,
on, but it's still, you're still kind of looking to belong, though, and I think that that's
mhm,
probably where that was, right? Like
yeah,
you didn't have your mom and dad to kind of belong to, and then
no,
if you were kind of going into high school and you didn't feel like you had a group there to belong to, that's a hard, regardless of the good stuff that's happening, you're s-
yes.
you're still looking for something.
I was still looking. And I would say that going through that and having, I would say, just the support of my grandmother and
Mm,
finding faith. And I don't know how to explain it, but I think that there was some kind of divine intervention
mhm.
because I literally was just there. I, not to be graphic or anything, but I had
Mhm.
the razor blade in my hand, against my wrist, ready to just do that and be over with it.
Mm.
And somehow something happened. And from that moment on, it was just like a new, I don't know, something new was birthed out of me.
Yeah.
And I finished high school at 16 and a half.
Oh, wow.
Um, I went on to graduate from Mount Holyoke College and have been just making historic moments in my little life for years.
Which we're going
And
to get to because there's some pretty historic moments that you have that you've achieved.
yeah, and one thing that I always look back, and when I wrote the song I Am Triumphant, I was on a radio interview and I said this because when you're in that dark moment, you don't see your future. All
Yeah.
you see is what is around you at that time that's
Hmm.
oppressing you. And I said, it brought tears to my eyes because I said, what if I had succeeded?
Yeah. What a shame.
All the things, the beautiful things and blessings in my life that were in store for me past that temporary moment, because I don't know those kids anymore. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? I've survived life without my father. I've survived life without my mother, but I was so focused
Yeah.
on that moment that I was willing to end my life.
Well, because it's hard to really see anything past our immediate because it's sometimes so out of grasp, or
Mm-hmm.
there's so much weight kind of coming down on us that we can't even begin to understand how
Oh,
we're going to get to a different place, how we're going to be in this. I talk about this a lot because I don't know where I heard it, but I heard Oprah talking to a group, I think it was like Stanford, college students, and she was just talking in this round forum where she's like, no matter what is going on in your life, the good or the bad, it is only a moment in time.
mm-hmm.
And so don't take it for any more than that. And that's been a very, very powerful thing for me to
Wow.
reflect on, especially the good stuff, because sometimes we can get lost in that good stuff and forget what kind of gets you there and lose some of
Mm-hmm.
that thing. And it sometimes helps to keep you grounded on both ends of the spectrum. Kind of
Absolutely.
thinking that way. So how do you having that experience, how do you make sure that you do things on a regular basis that don't allow you to feel that way anymore? Is it through song? Is it through, you know,
It's through a list of things actually. And honestly, again, I can't say this enough. And some people will laugh and you'll be like, "Are you talking to yourself?" I myself, okay, because I'm dealing with some things and I'm talking myself through these things so that
yeah.
I don't end up in a negative space. And that is one of the things that I do because and it could be a therapist. If you have a therapist that talks you through those things, that's fine too. But I talk to myself and I say, okay, listen, okay, Michelle, this is obviously something that I have to go through right now in my life. It's not a happy thing that I want to go through, but what is this going to teach me? What
Mm,
am I getting out of this? And, through my songs, through other artists' songs, just finding my happy space. It's funny. I don't know if you saw the Disney movie Soul, but it came out a few months ago, but it talked about the musicians and how we have a zone. Like you could be an
mm,
athlete, you could be an artist, but there's a zone that you tap into when you're in your element, like you're singing. And so when I sing, there's a place that I go to that gives me comfort. It gives me peace. It takes me beyond that awkward, ugly, oppressive moment that I have to deal with in my life. And reading inspirational material, whether
Yeah.
it's spiritual, it could just, be my Bible. It could be inspirational quotes by other writers or authors. And I just find it's like food for your soul. So
Yeah.
when going through those moments, what are you feeding yourself? It's like we go to the doctor when we're sick, they give us something to treat what that is. And so on this side of things, when we're going through something, a difficult time, what are we feeding ourselves to be able to survive that moment? So for me, it's music and literature.
Yeah, and I love that because you continue to hear everything that you say to yourself, whether it's quiet, whether it's out loud. And so, the more that you're cognizant of what you're saying and the thoughts that you have
Mm-hmm.
about who you are and what you can achieve and what you can do and what you can push past through, that's where amazing things happen.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And so now you've had some amazing moments, and I want to talk about one of them because as you were talking about that, I was like, so when you get in that zone, is that where you were when you were singing Proud Mary on The Voice? Because because that was an amazing performance. And, I can't even, you shared with me just that you did an audition on the anniversary of your mother's passing. And so,
Mhm.
how does all of that kind of play in? Like, was that had to have been such an emotional day, dealing with that. I've lost both of my parents, and every time that those days come up, I'm like, oh, I'm fine. But then all of a sudden I realize that I'm a little bit short, and
Yeah.
things are bothering me that they really shouldn't. And so, that still affects us. And so to then have to sing for The Voice, like, how do you take that? And
Well, it's an act, man. I'm telling you, like everything. I just feel like everything in our life happens for a reason, and it leads up to certain things. And when I made it onto The Voice, which by the way, I was actually I was not looking to audition for The Voice actually, and it just sort of fell into my lap. And I remember it was a Sunday night and I was watching the show really like for the first time. I'd heard about it and I was like,
yeah.
oh, I'm sitting down watching it. And my godmother called me and she said, hey, you should think about going on The Voice. And I was like, no, I'm okay. I was like, you sing, auntie, so why not? Because there's no age limit, right? So you can go on The Voice. And I thought no more about it, Scott. And the very next day, um, I got a call from a talent scout who I met just from singing at different places.
Yeah.
And she called me. Actually, she inboxed me on Facebook and said, hey, I have a major talent show that's looking for private recommendations for talent, and I want to recommend you. Give me a call. And I called her and she told me it was The Voice. And I immediately was like, I'm not interested. Thank you so much. And a few days went on, and talk about confirmation. About 4 or 5 days later, I was actually teaching music at a school and we were getting ready for an assembly. And one of the faculty members walked over and she said, hey, have you thought about going on The Voice? And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And so lo and behold, I ended up doing it. My husband was a big pusher of that. So, I end up
Isn't
on
it
the
isn't it amazing though how the universe talks to you?
show.
And sometimes we're just really not listening, and it's just
Yep.
like, it's amazing. People are like, I was just talking about this, and boom, there it is. Well,
Yeah.
listen, you're bringing those things into your world. These things are happening, and it's sometimes we just have to listen. I love that.
I was like, okay, so within a week, 3 people had come to, you really should do The Voice. And I'm like, no. And when the first audition, because I had to do that talent scout audition or whatever, and it came, and the lady called me and she said, are you going to do it? And I was like, no, it had been 4 weeks talking about this. And I was just like, no, I'm really all set. Thank you. And my husband's like, you're going to go. I'm taking you to the audition tomorrow. And so we're arguing on the phone. He's in the car. I'm on the phone. I'm like, I'm not going. And so I went. And I have to share this story because it was one of those moments where, some things just sort of orchestrate together for you because there's a purpose behind it. And so things just kind of fall in place. And I'm sure we all have a story where you kind of put a sequence of things together that have happened. And you're like, wow, that happened so I could get to this. And then this happened so I could get to that. And so when I got there, I sung a couple of songs, and before I could get back to the highway, they called me and said, we want to send you to New York to the actual NBC casting people. And the recruiter there wrote me an email that night and said, when you sung for me today, there was something magical about you singing. She said, I don't know that you'll get picked for the show. I don't know that you'll even win the show. She said, but you have been given a gift. And it is, basically to be shared with the world, and that God had given it to me. And things like that, Scott, are what keep me believing there's a purpose. When I sing, people feel it. They can't explain it, but they know it's there. So get on the show. There's a series, and I don't want to burst anybody's bubble, but it's a process. Let me tell you. So I had gone to LA. I was away from my family, and they have executive callbacks. So you've made it through a series of auditions and psychological exams and all of that. And
wow, psychological exams too.
Yeah, they have to make sure that you can handle, the pressure and even the disappointment, because there's only one winner. And you actually, when you get eliminated, I don't know if they still do this, but during my season, once you got eliminated, right after your taping, they took you to see one of their therapists on site, literally outside the studio. And you talk with him, and you talk about how you're feeling about the moment and the outcome, to really make sure you're okay. And I can appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's nice that they just don't kind of say, okay, now go deal with that, and can leave people in potentially a bad place.
Yeah. And so got up there, it was executive callbacks. And so I remember saying to them, I said, this is the day of my mother's death. And for so many years, because I was 28 at the time, so for 15 years, it literally had been a day that was a reminder of me losing a part of me, where I come from, and there really hadn't been anything to change that, so to speak. That was always a day. And so I said, so thank you for allowing me this opportunity to even make it this far, to be considered for now the blind auditions, because that was what was next. And so I remember they had me sing Proud Mary and Shaka Khan, Ain't Nobody. So I sung those songs to the best of my ability. And I'm just kind of like, Mom, this is for you, because you passed this on to me. And what was so amazing, I got on the plane. So that's all done. Got on the plane. Somebody left a People's magazine. I just decided to open it, and I turned to the horoscope section. Now, I'm not a horoscope reader or anything like that, but I saved it, and it is somewhere. It said I'm a Cancer. I'm born in June. So it said for that week, that you were going to land a major audition in music that was going to open doors for you. Now, all I know is that was on point, and it was almost a confirmation for me. that what I had just been through, it was almost like my mom was like, hey, you got this, honey. I saw you. I'm with you. It's all working out. And literally, I got the call back. I flew back home that weekend. I think it was a Friday. I got the call back on Monday or Tuesday that I was going to the next round. And literally, it was like, oh my gosh.
Wow.
It
And
was just a wonderful feeling.
and I love that story for a few different reasons, but one of them is I tend to draw strength from my mom and my dad, even though they're not here.
Mm-hmm.
And so, anytime I see a cardinal or a penny in a random place, I
Mm-hmm.
know just from different things that it is, especially now that I'm paying attention to it, it's amazing how there's some cardinals in my backyard, and
Yeah.
I'll be having a thought looking out the back window, and as this thought's kind of coming to a conclusion, it's like all of a sudden a cardinal flies right up into the tree, and I'm just like, okay, there we go. Hello.
Yeah.
But but that's important because especially when you have trauma like that, where you kind of lose a loved one, especially a parent that we look up to, and we look
Mm-hmm.
for this validation at times, and we look for this security, to not have that. We have to find it in some other way. And that's where I take comfort knowing that they're still here with me, because those things can't always be coincidental. And
Oh,
so that's just where and when you line all of these different things up, you're just like, okay, I now have that comfort level. So do you find that at various times? Have you noticed different things that have ever happened, or just you have these kind of moments that allow you to understand that you have that support still with you?
I do. And it's interesting because I just feel like in my life, I wasn't going to have the two women from which, lineage wise I came from. So my maternal grandmother and my mother. And I was blessed with twin daughters. Um, and Scott, one is identical to my mother, and the other is identical to my grandmother.
Mm,
And I remember when they were born, and I looked at my second daughter that was born. I was in my room alone, and they had brought her in, and she opened her eyes, and it was as if I looked into my mother's eyes
mm,
after, let me see, I was 22, 23 when I had my daughters, after 10 years.
mm.
And I just bawled my eyes out. Of course, as our
Oh.
hormones, I mean, she could have been asleep probably for a long time. But I was like, oh my gosh. And
Mm,
everyone in my family and who knew my mother, they always say, like, your daughter is your mother. Like,
mm,
and her mannerisms, her laughs, her just like random responses, her thought process is so much like my mother.
yeah.
And my other daughter is like my grandmother. And so I have them around me. And sometimes they'll say things that remind me exactly of my mother or my
Mhm.
grandmother. And so I feel very blessed that I have them, because it's like that love that I wanted to be able to give to my mother and my grandmother. I can no longer do that, but I have my two daughters who are a
Mhm.
constant reminder of that. And
Yeah.
you talked about some days, we all have those days where we're like, okay, like what is going on? But my daughters will always be there with some words of inspiration. And I'm like, you're only 13.
Like,
Like, what are you talking
how did you come up with that, right?
about? Yeah.
That's and that must give you so much just inspiration to be able to pull from, to take all of the things that you got, to then now make sure that all of those things continue,
Absolutely.
which is just continuing that legacy that you know that gets to go, which is amazing. And just the fact that you had twin daughters is really, it's kind of wild. And then to have both of those personalities is even, it's just even more, yeah, that's
I
amazing.
tell my one daughter, I'm like, I should have named you Gail because my mom Gail. And I'm like, you look like her so much. And like I said, some family members are like, I just can't look at her because
Yeah.
she and acts like it's almost like my mom gave birth to her because she is a splitting image of my mother. And
Mm,
genetics are crazy in itself.
yeah.
Um, but she looks like my mom. And I
Yeah.
feel every day because I'm like, I get to look at my mom every day. Every
And and so you know, so you don't this isn't just your full-time job. You have a full-time job as, you know, certain as a bank executive. How was the past year been for you and the girls and COVID and the like, I mean, it's been a tough year for everyone. You know, we've all, again, everyone's in the same storm in a different boat. But, you know, again, I talked to a lot of, I have been talking to a lot of moms that have, you know, great professional careers as well, that it was a challenge, it was a struggle. And, you know, certainly something that everyone has felt this past year.
mm-hmm. Um, so again, everything happens for a reason, but I, you know, I didn't know my husband was going to be a teacher when I married him because he was in the, you know, he was playing in the NFL, but
Yeah.
you know, life happens. And so he's a teacher. So during the pandemic, it actually worked out for us that his profession allowed him to be home with our daughters and our son. So that was nice.
Mm.
But for me, you know, I still had to work through this pandemic, which was a little difficult because, you know, being out there and, you know, health experts not really knowing how to treat this. And, you know, there's death all around. And it's just like, okay, but I still got to go out there because mommy has to go to work. And,
Hmm.
you know, unfortunately, the worst did happen, which was me getting sick with
Oh.
COVID, bringing it home to my family. And so 7 of us were sick with COVID. And I, you know, I have a multi-generational household. So my son, who's 2, and my aunt, who was 77, she was sick too. And it
Yeah.
was really unfortunate because it was my fear that because I was not able to be remotely working,
Sure.
um, that because I'm out there at the bank and I'm meeting with people and, you know, the banks had opened back up, that it was always a risk.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
so, you know, going through that in November and still myself dealing with it as a long hauler, unfortunately,
Oh, so you
it,
still have some symptoms
yeah,
from it? Yeah.
I'm not gonna say I won't be able to taste again like I used to, but I'm still dealing with that brain
Mm.
fog and fatigue and things. And so only thing that they can do is sort of treat some of those symptoms, but they're not curable. You know what I
Mm.
mean?
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I always joke with my husband, I'm like, you see, you couldn't lose your taste. It had to be me because my husband, he loves food and there's no way be able to live without tasting his food. So he agrees. He's just like,
It's
yeah,
like,
yeah. So, but there was a blessing in it because we were all quarantined together.
yeah,
Um, and I think that if you have families and you missed this opportunity to just slow down because
mm,
it's fleeting. Life is fleeting. So if you didn't take the opportunity from this to just embrace time with family and loved ones, you missed a great chance to just enjoy life with
well,
them.
because now that things are opening back up, it's going to get just as quick as it once was, if not even
Yeah.
quicker. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, you're never going to get an opportunity, as horrible as it was. Listen, you know, COVID
Yes.
is horrible, but just, you know, there's always silver linings that you can take from
Mm-hmm.
that. situations, and that was one of them, right? Like just being
Yeah.
able to maybe figure out some new habits or some new routines that you just,
Hmm.
because you've been in some bad ones, or hopefully maybe, COVID has allowed you to realize that you had some bad routines and just be like, okay, well, I got to figure some shit out because
Yeah. Yeah.
but so, one thing that I've been dying to ask you, as you're sitting there getting ready to sing on The Voice for the blind auditions, like, what do you do? Because I know myself. So I love these conversations. I can talk to anybody one on one. I'm not
Yep.
nervous, no big deal. You put me in front of a crowd. I had to do a TED talk for for my company. And there wasn't a lot of people, but it was like I made sure I wore two t-shirts because I knew I was going to sweat through them. So how do kind of be in that moment and still deliver the performance that you did, because it was amazing.
It's one of those moments where it's like, okay, you've been waiting, you've been wanting this for so long, because I had auditioned for American Idol. I had
Mm,
auditioned for another competition, I think probably about three or four major network TV competitions, and I didn't make it past the first round. And so when The Voice came, it was almost like it was handed to me. Like, here
mm.
you go, you want it, walk through the door, it's there for you. And so, producers told us you only need one chair to turn around for you and you're on the show. So, and filming doesn't stop if you mess up on your lyrics. So I
Mhm.
knew right away my goal was to turn a chair, even if it was one, and to sing like my life depends on it.
That's it.
And I was nervous, but I was also like hungry for it.
Mm.
So that fear and you know anxiety about, oh my gosh, I'm going out there in front of these celebrity coaches and all these people in America, I was more like, bring it on, because I'm ready, because I'm tired of closed doors.
Let
And
me
so now
sing.
I have an open. Okay, just it was, you think about when you watch those shows, the bullfighting, right? And the
Hmm.
bull is at the door and it's ready to
Like
come
ready to
out.
go.
I was that bull. I was ready. I was behind stage, like, let's do this. And so I went out there, and one of the highlights from The Voice was something that Adam Levine said um, when he picked me. He said, "You have a supernatural singing ability."
Mm.
And I've never heard anybody else say that to any of the other contestants. And it goes back to what I was saying when I've had people come up to me and say, I just can't describe what I
Mm.
feel when you sing. There's something that happens, and the tears, the goosebumps.
You
I've
touch
had
people.
people come up to me and just say, I didn't even believe in any kind of power or higher power or God or anything, but hearing you sing, it made them believe. Hearing me sing made them believe that there was something else.
Hmm.
And so for me, that's uplifting, that's inspiring. And so, that voice experience, I was just like, okay, the world gets to hear me. The world gets to experience what so many
Absolutely.
people had been saying already. And a lot of fan mail that I got pretty much said the same thing.
Mm.
Like, people said when you were singing on the show, like, you had this glow about you. You just had this energy that came off, and it was just powerful. And even the vocal coach behind the scenes, he said, watching you from back here on the monitors, he was like, you just had this glow around you.
Hmm.
And I don't know where it came from. It was a divine glow. Um,
But
but I was
it must have been fairly comfortable. Like you had already had two chairs turned, right? And so you were just singing, and then at the end it became super powerful, hitting those notes. And then I know Christina turned right at the end, and it was just
yep.
like, you know, that has to feel amazing to have that validation, right? Like you went out there, and regardless of what happened, you sang and
Mhm.
you left it out there. And so, but then to have that validation with having three chairs turned is had to have been just like, all right.
it
That's
was cool.
exactly
And
what was supposed to happen.
I knew going out there that Blake Shelton was probably not going to turn because powerhouse, and I know that he wouldn't really be able to coach me or do anything with my voice. So I was
Yeah.
cool with him turning. But I was really surprised, and I knew that Christina might turn around, but I wasn't too sure. But I knew Adam and CeeLo would turn around, and then so the choice was, who was I going to go with? And
Did you have a thought going into it, like who you wanted?
I did. It was more strategic.
Yeah.
I knew that all the powerhouse singers were going to go with CeeLo or Christina.
Mm.
And, if you watch the show, what they try to do is weed out the duplicates. So if you've got too many powerhouse singers on one team, they're going to battle them together and, keep the strongest one, so to speak. And so I was on Adam's team, and I was the only really powerhouse vocalist on that team other than another friend of mine. And what ended up happening was someone from CeeLo's team, who was a powerhouse, got stolen onto that team. So now he had two powerhouse vocalists. But, you know, just thinking about purpose, when I got eliminated, it was an interesting moment because with TV, reality TV, they want to portray, certain things that aren't necessarily there. And when I got eliminated, the producers were like, okay, we want to get a shot of you coming off the stage saying how upset you are and all this stuff. So, they said, okay, so shoot, here you go. So they're like, how are you feeling? And so I was like, I feel great. It didn't, I'm a little disappointed, but, I feel great. I'm thankful for the opportunity to be on this platform. They were like, cut. So we need you to say that you're really upset. And I'm just like, I'm not going to say that. You know what I mean? Like, what I will say, so they started the cameras again. And I was like, I'm a little disappointed that this is, the end of my journey, but I believe all things happen for a reason. And, I'm okay with that. I said, this is not the last time America will see Michelle Brooks-Thompson. Okay. And, I left it at that. And they took me to see the therapist right after. And the therapist was like, how are you feeling? I said, I feel great. I said, only thing that's bothering me is these shoes, these heels on my feet right now. If you want to rub my feet, I'll be okay with it. And he starts laughing and he's like, but he was like, how are you feeling about the results? And I said, listen, just like we are sitting here in your office on Universal Studios, there are many ways to get here. I said, and that's with my singing and my experience today. This is not the end of me. This is just as far as I needed to get to go to the next level. And so I'm fine. And he looked at me and he said, are you a Christian? And I was just like, yeah. He was just like, okay. He was like, you're fine. Have a nice day. Like he was like, I spoke some positive purpose, life-driven, everything into him at that moment.
Well, there's so many people that I'm sure go there, and it's like this is the culmination of their whole world. And to be able to kind of come into that situation and have it not be your whole world and just be grateful that you were able to share and do what you did while you were there. And that's a healthy way to be able to kind of come at it. But there's a lot of people that like, this is it. And this was my only shot. And I'm never going to get another opportunity because it's only about the fame and it's only about the other things. And for you, it's more,
It is. I've always been the type of person that, okay, we have a plan A and we have a plan B and a plan C, just in case plan B and A, just decide not to work. And so when I went to The Voice, I was actually working at another bank and they were very supportive of me going on the show and gave me the allotted time that I needed to go to from LA. And I never quit my job. I never thought for one moment that I was so phenomenal that I was going to win the voice and I was never going to have to go back to a 9 to 5 and all that. So unfortunately, some people did. Like, they
Yeah.
quit their jobs. They thought that this was going to work. And unfortunately, the way the show is set up, even though you get picked for blind auditions, doesn't mean you're actually going to get to go, because
Mm.
there's more contestants than there are slots. So not everybody, they just pretty much run production
Mhm.
until the teams are filled, because they don't know, how many people Adam are going to pick that day. He might only
Mhm.
pick 2 and he's got 30 slots to fill or whatever. And so once that last coach fills their spot, you could literally be behind stage ready to go on and production's done. Like, that's it. And so that day was sad because people were, other contestants that didn't even make the blind auditions that were there were devastated
Mm.
because they had, really put everything off and was there committed 100%. And unfortunately, it just didn't even work out for them.
Yeah. Which again, yeah, it's a devastating place to be if this is like, okay, this is it. Instead
Unfortunately.
of like, okay, well, regardless of what happens, I'm still going to sing.
Yeah.
And now there's just another opportunity. And speaking of
Yeah.
which, so how do you take the voice and now, singing at Apollo Theater? Like, like again, I mean, Apollo is just one of those places where it has to feel just amazing to get on stage and to do what you do. Like, so yeah, I mean, I'm sure they're just completely different, but just super impactful,
Uh, oh man, I could say so much about that journey too. I'm telling you, like, everything that has happened in my life has a purpose behind it, because when I was, someone actually sent me a letter, I think a message on Facebook with a copy of a letter that I had written when I was a participant and a youth counselor at an arts camp when I was about 16.
Mm.
And on that, it was a list of things that I wanted to do in this life. And one of the things on there was go to New York and win the Apollo.
Mm.
I forgot all about that. I never even put that out there, into the universe. And so in 2014, I ended up doing the Apollo, and I made it all the way. So there's about 1, 2, 3, 4, I think 4 rounds. But you're competing against 12 contestants each time.
Mm.
And I made it through all the way to what's called the Super Top Dog winner. And it was a snowstorm that day. And so a lot of people that were going to come out and support me, because it's all done by applause and screams and cheers. And so you need people there. And because of the snowstorm, there wasn't, a lot of people there anyway.
Mm.
But I ended up losing by 3 points. And it was $10,000. That was the grand prize. It was $10,000. And I was a little devastated because
Yeah.
I did lose to a beatboxer. And I was trying. I'm going to be honest. I was trying to figure out, not to say he wasn't talented in his own right.
Yeah.
But how do you compare vocals
yeah.
to spitting? Like,
Yeah.
let's just be honest. So, but he had a lot of people there. So let's see, 2017. So 3 years went by. I was a little hurt by that loss. I will be honest. I started talking to my husband. I'm like, so how do you, figure this out that you lost to a beatboxer? Okay. So, I went on with my life, released my album. And January 2017, the producers from the Apollo called me back and said, hey, we want to know if you'll come back and compete this year. I'm like, no, been there down that road. And
any beatboxers going to be there?
Be a juggler this time. I'm okay. And so the producer kept on me, just like The Voice. He kept on me. He was like checking in with me. Have you made up your mind? The first round of auditions are coming. And I'm just like, fine, just sign me up and send me a date and I'll go. And he said, okay, also, I want to tell you that the prize isn't 10,000 anymore. They upped it this year to $20,000. And I'm like, oh, well then sign me up, because that sounds real good.
Mm-hmm.
So I signed up, went through every round. I won first place. And I got to the Super Top Dogs in November 2017 and ended up winning. I think by 5 points, 4 points. I beat out a group of salsa dancers. And I just remember, so what happened though, everything works, everything, you do one thing to set you up for something else, because at the same time that this was happening, Oscar winner, his name is Roger Ross Williams, who's a Hollywood movie producer. He does documentaries. He had actually decided to produce the first Apollo documentary ever. And so he saw one of my auditions and wanted to make me a part of the film. So here comes Roger Ross Williams to West Springfield, Massachusetts, filming my life in my home, filming me at my job. How incredible was that experience, right? And
to not only have this experience for yourself, but then to now have it documented from some other person, like amazing.
Yeah. And really just, it was to capture my life as a singer and a mom, a wife, and really pursuing this, because I didn't win in 2014. And we talked about that, and how this time was like, there was a lot of pressure, right? Am I going to win? This is my second time through, same plan. I made it all the way through. Now, it's the Super Top Dogs again. And I remember I was doing a band rehearsal that they were filming here for a concert I had to do. And Roger Ross said to me, he was like, I'm looking at the next winner of the Apollo. And I'm like, yeah, I hope so. Because I don't know, it could be a tap dancer this year. I don't know. So I felt very like everything again was working together for me. There was a purpose why I did 2014, so that I could be back for 2017, but also meet Roger Ross Williams, double the prize, and just have more of a story to share with people about. It might not work the first time, but it doesn't mean the second time, it might not work. You got to try again and not give up. And so I easily could have said, nope, I'm not going to do it at all. And I would have missed that moment. I would have missed that opportunity. And so, it goes to say, even those moments that hurt, that are disappointing and discouraging, there's a purpose behind that. If I had never done 2014, I wouldn't have got called in 2017.
Yeah.
And I had to go through that. And so it's like, man, I remember crying on the way home in 2014 because I lost, and I really, really, really wanted to win so bad. And I cried all the way from New York back to Massachusetts. And my daughters drew a picture for me the next day that said, don't stop singing. I think it said, you were born for this, or you were made to sing, and stuff like that. And so that was encouraging. And they were, they were around 8 years old, drawing that for me and encouraging me. And so just being crowned like the winner of, the legendary Apollo, that so many iconic artists, comedians, instrumentalists have, Michael Jackson, like Aretha Franklin, like everybody. And to know that I'm in their history books, that, hey, she was our winner in 2017.
It's huge.
It's really a blessing.
It's amazing. And then, now you find yourself, right, signing with Sony Music, right? The Orchards, is that
Yeah,
part of Sony Music?
yeah,
And
yeah.
just you're just releasing a single, and you just did a music video yesterday, correct?
Yes, I did. Yes.
And so you were telling me about the song, and I would really love for you to share about, really what it's all about, and, kind of,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, a lot of people ask me like, why don't you just quit your day job and keep and do singing and do music? And I'm like, well, I'm not there yet where I can walk away because I have a family, I have a
Hmm.
husband and children, and I have to make sure that home is taken care of. And so a lot of times women, we make a choice and either we put our dreams on hold and don't pursue them anymore because we have to raise a family, we're a wife, we're mom, and we
Hmm.
focus on kids, we focus on the husband, supporting them, and we don't pick our dreams back up.
Hmm.
And so one thing for me is that I never let my singing down. Like I never put it down and said, I'll pick you back up in 20 years. It's always been a part of me. It's been working at the bank for the last 14 and a half years and pursuing music at the same time.
Hmm.
And sometimes I'm juggling a lot. So out birthed this song called Woman First. So I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm the giver of life, I'm a teacher, I'm a dreamer. Every day I'm making my children believe that they can do anything, or I'm talking to someone on a
Hmm.
podcast or radio segment that, you can do anything if you believe in yourself. And so this, I know, is a song that many other women sing, right? You think
Yeah.
about all women entrepreneurs, lawyers, doctors, scientists, whatever they are, they may be raising families, they might be a single mom, but they're doing it. They're in school, they're doing everything that their heart desires. And I'm like, why not birth out this song that celebrates women, that
Yeah.
celebrates us in womanhood, doing what we do while raising our families, being a support to my husband, because I support my husband. He's a teacher and a
Yeah.
coach, and I have to support my kids in their endeavors and support my own. And so I'm like, this is our anthem. And I like to empower people. So again, singing on purpose, this
Hmm.
song has so much purpose to just encourage and inspire women like, hey, what you're doing is noticed. And to keep doing it. So it comes out Mother's Day weekend,
Mm,
which is, we
I love
celebrate
it.
our mothers, our aunties, our sisters. And, the caption of this has been woman first. Like, no matter what we are doing, we are woman first and we are united with each other. We're
Hmm.
sisters, regardless of your race or ethnicity. Womanhood bonds us all. And
Hmm.
so I'm so excited because
I
I
love it.
really think this song is going to bring unity to women.
Yeah. No, and I love it, and I love all that you do. Like it's following a passion, it's being a role model, and it's a way of like I don't have to separate these things. I can be a mom, I can sing, and I can inspire people and encourage people and support people, and this
Mm-hmm.
is just all of who I am. And I don't have to ignore or put any of it aside or any of it away, and I can do all of those things that give me passion, that give me purpose. And you can only be the best role model that you can be if you follow all of these things, because if you tuck them away and you don't do these things for yourself, then you're missing out on an opportunity to give that to who's ever watching. And it doesn't have to be children, it doesn't have to be,
Yeah.
it's who's ever watching. Because when you tuck that away, somebody sees that, and
Mm-hmm.
then all of a sudden they see that, okay, in order for me to do this, I can't do that. And why not do it all? Because you only get one go around, and it's valuable, precious time that we can't waste any of it.
And I do look at my daughters because, actually my husband and I were having a conversation last weekend when we were on our way to Boston. And, he was talking about the things that I've been through in my life. And he's just like, how how did you do it? Like, how did you come through all of this? And, I just say that, my music, my faith, prayers, there's got to be something that you believe in. I don't care if it's a purple crayon, but, I feel like you need to have something that you believe
Yes.
in that gives you some sort of hope, faith, inspiration. And, you know, my daughters are, I would say they're my biggest fans
Yes.
because they see everything that I do. Even at the video shoot yesterday, one was like, "Can I wear one of your t-shirts?" And, just being there to support and saying,
Hmm.
"Mom, that's really great. I like what you did for the women," which was nice because I was able to honor other women,
Yeah.
um, that they're doing. And, I think it's so important that we do that and just show appreciation. Even though it's my music video, I still wanted to honor
Yeah.
them,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I just, if I can, my grandfather used to say this saying, and it was called, he would say, if I can just help somebody, he didn't say a bunch of people, somebody along the way, then my living will not be in vain.
That's it.
So even if it's just one person, that I'm able to help, or multiple people because I'm singing somewhere and, they feel inspired by what I'm singing about, I'm good with that, and
Yeah, and you get that with a service attitude, right? Like it's like, okay, I've got to understand what is unique for me because everyone has something unique with inside of them. Everyone is a shining star. But we have to develop that, we have to discover that, and then we have to give that to the world. We can't hold on to it.
yes,
It's not ours. We have to give that to the world. And it
absolutely.
and so it's great that you do that, that you celebrate even the women that were there, celebrating them as well. Yes, this is your music video, but just because you're celebrating somebody else doesn't mean that you have to put yourself down. We can, right, all rise up together. And so, that's it's a beautiful thing to do. It's a beautiful thing to just give back and keep giving back to the community, to the
Yeah,
world, just to, to everyone who's listening. And so, I love that about you, Michelle. It's an amazing quality to have. And thank you for doing that.
absolutely. I had said, maybe this might be an annual, award,
Mm,
Woman First Award, where just honoring women, who are doing great things. Because, like I said, sometimes you do want that, appreciation from others.
hmm.
And there are women who have never heard you're doing a good job, or, I see,
Yeah.
because maybe you're not on a major platform, and maybe you're one of those women that just work behind the scenes. You don't want to tell everybody what you're doing,
Yeah.
for others. And so it's nice to just make people who maybe never got an award, who've never felt appreciated,
Hmm.
feel that.
Yeah.
And it's the little things. People think it's the really great big, grand
Nope.
thing that matter. It's just the little things,
Hmm.
that really matter to people.
They really do, because it's like that'll be something that somebody would never forget. Like,
Hmm.
because they will never forget how you made them feel in this moment, that they got to celebrate themselves or celebrate something that was special for them. And so we
Yeah.
all need that. We all need that opportunity. Um, so awesome. So I know we're taking up a lot of time so far. Before we wrap up, I just have one question. Aside from family, you've accomplished a ton. Um, and aside from family, what's the one or maybe two things that you're really most proud of, that you've been able to accomplish so far? Or yeah.
Hmm, that's a good question, man. Hmm. There's so many things, but if I could really, man, I would say that going to, college early, finishing high school, early was really something important to me that I feel very proud of because, like I said, it happened at a moment in my life where I felt defeated. I felt
Hmm.
discouraged and I wanted to give up. But, I was able to turn that around. I skipped the 11th grade, went to the 12th grade, graduated. And I'm saying this because I had no one to help me. So
Yeah.
that's I had no one, but there was a energy within inside of me that made me hunger for those things. And, I was able to do that, got a scholarship to Mount Holyoke. I did work my entire like I've been working since I was 13 years old with a permit.
Hmm.
And everything that I've gotten for myself has been because I've worked so hard for it. First car in my name, in
Hmm.
college, working. And so my husband always tells me, you're so strong. Like you just have all this strength after all the things that you've been through. And so for me, it's like I can tell someone else, like, listen, it's possible. Like
Hmm.
it's going to be hard, but it is possible. And all it takes is your faith and your determination in yourself.
Hmm.
And, all those things um, that I've done and worked hard for has only been because I believed in myself that I could do it. And when I tell you, I didn't have anybody helping me fill out applications for college. I didn't have anybody helping me prep for the SATs. Like I had to learn all that stuff by
Hmm.
myself because my grandparents were old and, they're from like 1923, 28, where you went to the army,
Yeah.
after hit college and all that, you become a
And that's a
homemaker.
lot to have to go through without any guidance, without any,
No guidance.
direction and all of that. That's huge.
No guidance at all. And I think that's one of the reasons, like I feel like I kind of dibble and dabble in so much because I'm the type of person, if I see something that I want to do it, I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
And I'll learn how to do it if I don't know how to do it, or just jump in and see if I can do it
Hmm.
and find out, okay, so maybe I need to get a little, tutorial on whatever it is. But it's like people will be like, you made those flyers or you created this website or you did. Yeah. Do you do that stuff? No, I
Nope.
just needed to do it. So I did
It
it
had to
myself.
get done. So I figured it out.
So it's birthed something in me from all those things that I feel have passed on to my children
Hmm.
because I have one daughter. We've never taught her how to draw. We've never taught her how to sew. She makes her own costumes. She's creative. And we never invested time to teach her how to do those things. She wanted to make costumes. She started cutting up clothes and sewing and things like that. And that's
Perfect.
me all over. She's just
Yeah.
like, oh, I want to do that. Let me just do it.
Let me
And
figure it
so,
out. I love it. I love it. Well, Michelle Brooks Thompson, you were amazing. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining me today, for giving me an hour of your time and giving everyone who is going to listen to this your time, because your words are inspirational. Your actions are even more inspirational. And so thank you for all you do. Thank you for all that you give back to the community and everyone, not only with just the supportive person that you are, but for, the words that you share through your music. And, it's a unique individual that can touch the lives of people that way. And so thank you for all of that.
thank you. Thank you so much. And I will put out there, if any listener, I will pick one. If you email me that you watch the show and or listen to the podcast or whichever, I will give them a free t-shirt and a
Oh, I love it.
single, yep, of the new song coming out.
I love that. Excellent. And so I will put all of your information at the end of this so that people will be able to see that. But if you want to just share an email also for the podcast, that way people will know where to email that. Please share
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
So the best email would be DT, as in David Thompson, underscore management Inc. INC at outlook.com.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, excellent. Well, Michelle, thank you so much again for your
Yes.
time. It
Thank
was a pleasure to get to know you, and it was wonderful.
And thank you, Scott, because this is a platform that is definitely needed. Like we need
Mm,
more platforms and podcasts, radio shows that are uplifting and inspiring people. And like I said to you before, just the name of your podcast alone just speaks volumes. Because sometimes people need help finding their purpose
hmm.
and realizing that everybody has a purpose and it's
We all
not
do.
going to be the same as mine or yours, but you've got to find it
I didn't
and your
realize
life.
that. Yeah, I didn't realize that until I was 40. And but once I started paying attention, it was just like, okay, now I'm in a race because I realized
Mm,
that I had been just kind of floating around for a little while. And now I
yeah,
needed to really, put some traction around all of the ideas and the thoughts and
yeah.
the things that I wanted for myself. But yet it is. And your message is perfect that if you want it, just go get it. There's no one holding you back other than yourself. So just go do
Mhm.
it.
Thank you so much, Scott. I really appreciated this time.
Thank you. Thank you. I look forward to future conversations, Michelle.
Yes.
Awesome.